Hello and welcome to another Four Nations Face-Off roster builder. Today we will be building the United States of America roster for this upcoming tournament. So to kick it all off, we have Austin Matthews, Matthew Tkachuk, Jack Eichel, Quinn Hughes, Adam Fox, and Charlie McAvoy as the initial six that were picked earlier this year. So we're going to kick it right off, get right into it with the left wing one, and I think there's only one guy who can really fit here, and it has to be Brady Tkachuk. I just think this would be the most dominant line in the entire tournament. Three big guys, all very reliable in their own end, all can score. They're just three all-around players, and I can't think of a single defensive pairing or forward matchup that could stop these guys. I think you want to have the two Tkachuk brothers together. When else are they going to get the chance to play together like this? And obviously Austin Matthews will be the number one center on this team. And second line center will be Jack Eichel. I think that is a good fit for him. And his line mates will be Kyle Connor of the Winnipeg Jets. He's having a great start to the year, and he's had a great past few years, and I think he's a lock to be in those top two lines. And then on his other wing, I think I'm going to go with Clayton Keller of the Utah Hockey Club. He's been the best player on that team for the past, 5 years. And I think in a tournament like this where he's actually playing with other talented players, it'll really show off how good of a player he truly is. Okay, so on this third line, to center it, I'm choosing Jack Hughes. I think that's another obvious pick. He's probably going to be slotted right in this spot. He's a great player, young player, and I think he will be a big part of the future of the American hockey program. And on his wings, I'm going to give him a little bit of a veteran presence in Jake Gensel. He's just been so consistent for so long, and the U.S. team is going to be a much younger team than a lot of these other teams. So I think you still need to balance it out with some older players, and he might be a little bit older, but he's still one of the top players in this league. And on the other side, a little bit more youth here with Cole Caulfield. He's had an amazing start this season. He's on pace to absolutely smash his career high in goals. And I think he might have been a fringe player to make this roster at the beginning of the year. But I think with the way he's played, he's certainly deserved a spot now. And on the fourth line, you want a little bit more of a reliable older guy. Dylan Larkin, he's not even really that old. He's only 28 years old. I think he slots in nicely on the fourth line, though. And his line mates, I think you go with his teammate, Alex DeBrincat. He's not having as good of a year as he has past few, but it's still pretty good. 19 points in 22 games, 9 goals. I think he's just a very reliable, consistent player, and that's kind of what you need on the fourth line. And then on the other wing, go with Jason Robertson. There we go. He's been a great player these past few years. Definitely deserves a spot. He's not one of the flashier names on this list, but he's just a consistent player. He's a great shooter. And, I think he should obviously make this team. So then with the one extra player that I have, there's a couple guys that I had in mind, but I think the spot has to go to JT Miller. He's probably one of the most underrated players in this league. He's super good offensively and super good defensively. I don't think he gets enough credit for how good he is. And he's the kind of guy who can slot in anywhere in this entire lineup. If you need someone who you can just rely on, this is the guy you slot in. Another guy that I thought might make the team is Matt Boldy, but I think JT Miller is a little bit more of a responsible player. Matt Boldy plays for Minnesota. Bill Guerin's making the team, so I could see him being slotted in somewhere. But this is the team that I would build on attack. On defense, we're starting off already with 3: Quinn Hughes, Adam Fox, Charlie McAvoy. Obviously, those guys all would have been locks regardless. And I think the next few guys that I'll pick are also kind of obvious picks. So sliding in on left defense 2, next to Charlie McAvoy, I'm going to go with Zach Werenski. If he pops up. Yeah, Zach Werenski. He's had an amazing start this season. Over a point a game as a defenseman. Very impressive, especially considering he's, on the Columbus Blue Jackets. You don't hear too much about him typically, but he's been a great defenseman for quite a few years now, and I think he definitely deserves a spot on this team. Our defense is actually pretty young, the oldest being Zach Werenski at 27 years old, so I think you probably want to go with a little bit more age on the third line just to give you someone that you can rely on when it's crunch time. So someone who's been really consistent in this league for a long time is John Carlson. He's played well internationally for the U.S. before, and he's still having a pretty good year even at 34 years old. So I think third line, John Carlson makes a lot of sense. Then playing alongside him, I think you go with Jacob Slavin of the Carolina Hurricanes. He's a little bit older too, 30 years old, super reliable defensively. He won't contribute that much offensively, but that kind of pairs well with John Carlson. Offensive defenseman, defensive defenseman, both reliable and both still very good players. And the seventh defenseman, I think this is somewhere that Guerin goes with someone he knows, someone he trusts to, have a little bit of upside. And Brock Faber, he's super young. He's already turning into one of the best young defensemen in the league. I think he will have a more prominent role in future tournaments for the U.S., but I think this would be a good spot for him just to, get used to the international game. I could also see them going with someone like Neil Pionk, who's had a terrific start to this season, been one of the best defensemen in the league so far. He's not the number one defenseman on his team, so he has a bit of an easier matchup on most nights since Josh Morrissey plays above him. But I think he's still a great player, and I wouldn't be surprised if he did make this team over maybe Brock Faber or Jacob Slavin, John Carlson. So now moving on to probably one of the biggest strengths for the U.S. is in net. Obviously their forwards and defense are great too, but they really are a step above everyone else when it comes to goalies. And the most obvious pick in this entire video is Connor Hellebuyck. He will be the starting goalie for the American team. He's the best goalie in the league by a decent margin, I'd say. And, he's year after year, he's just surprising people with how good he can be. So yeah, I think that's a pretty obvious pick, and his backup is pretty obvious too, I think. Jake Ottinger. He's been very consistent since he's joined the league. Still young, so he's probably a big part of the future of the American program. And, I think that's just probably the best 1-2 punch that you're going to get in this tournament. Now, I had a little bit of a harder time with the third goalie because, coming into the year, I would have said, well, it's for sure going to be Jeremy Swayman. But he hasn't played that well this year. And, once you're past Jeremy Swayman, you get into more of the depth guys. I considered Anthony Stolarz or Joseph Woll. They both had great starts to the year for the Maple Leafs. But at the end of the day, I still think they go with Jeremy Swayman. It's a third goalie. Boston hasn't been the Boston that we have come to know over the past however many years, decade. Their defense isn't playing as well as they once did. I think Jeremy Swayman's still a good goalie, and if they do need him in this tournament, I'm sure with this defense, he can be the goalie that we saw the past few years instead of the goalie we see this year. So yeah, I think that will do it for this team. I think this team has a very good chance of winning it all. Obviously, it'll probably come between the U.S. and Canada. I think U.S. might have a bit more depth now than Canada even, but the top tier players, Canada probably still has a bit of an edge. So let me know what you guys think of this roster. Comment who you would have selected instead if you agree or disagree with my picks. Thank you guys so much for watching. Leave a like, comment, subscribe, and have a good rest of your day.